When Juanita stood in front of that jewelry store window on Michigan Avenue in Chicago, her hands were shaking. Inside the glass case sat a diamond ring that once belonged to her. The same ring Michael Jordan had given her 34 years ago, promising to love her forever. But forever had ended 17 years ago. 2 weeks earlier, Juanita had walked into the same store with that ring in her purse. She needed money desperately. After her divorce from Michael Jordan in 2006, she received $168 million. It was one of the biggest divorce settlements in history. But now, in 2023, that money was almost gone. Bad investments, failed businesses, helping too many people who never paid her back. Juanita was too proud to ask anyone for help, so she decided to sell the one thing she kept from her marriage: the ring. The store manager, Marcus Chen, had called her that morning with an urgent message. "Mrs. Vinoy, you need to come to the store right away. Something has happened with your ring." Juanita's heart was pounding as she walked through the door. Did the buyer back out? Did something go wrong? She desperately needed that money. Marcus led her to his private office. On his desk sat the velvet box that should contain her ring. But something was different. Something had changed. "Mrs. Vinoy," Marcus said quietly, "there was no buyer for your ring." Juanita felt panic rising in her chest. "What do you mean? You said someone was interested." Marcus opened the velvet box and Juanita gasped. The ring was still there, but it looked completely different. The original diamond sparkled as beautifully as ever. But now it was surrounded by smaller stones she had never seen before. Each tiny stone had words engraved on it. "What did you do to my ring?" Juanita whispered. "I didn't do anything," Marcus said gently. "He did." That one word hung in the air like thunder. He. There was only one person who would care about this ring. "Michael?" Juanita could barely speak. Marcus nodded slowly. "Mr. Jordan came to see me 7 years ago. He asked me to call him immediately if you ever tried to sell your wedding ring. He said you were too proud to ask for help, and the ring would be the last thing you would ever let go of." Juanita's hands began to tremble. 7 years ago? Michael had been watching and waiting all this time, knowing her well enough to predict this exact moment? "When you brought the ring in 2 weeks ago, I called him that same evening," Marcus continued. "And Mrs. Vinoy, what Mr. Jordan did next? Well, I've been in the jewelry business for 30 years, and I have never seen anything like it." Marcus pulled out a thick envelope and placed it on the desk in front of Juanita. Her name was written on the front in Michael's handwriting. "He made me promise something," Marcus said softly. "Before I show you what he did, you have to read this letter. He said you need to understand why before you see what." Juanita stared at the envelope. Inside were answers to questions she didn't even know she had. What had Michael done? Why had he been planning this for 7 years? And what could possibly shock a jewelry store owner who had seen everything? But that's just the beginning of this incredible story. What Michael Jordan did for his ex-wife goes far beyond that ring. It involves millions of dollars, a secret project he'd been working on for years, and 3 letters that would change everything Juanita thought she knew about their marriage and divorce. Watch this whole video to discover what Michael Jordan really did that shocked everyone. What you're about to hear will change the way you think about love, divorce, forgiveness, and second chances. Trust me, you won't believe what happens next. Juanita Vinoy Jordan's hands trembled as she stood on Michigan Avenue, staring through the glass window of Chen's fine jewelry. Inside the display case, under soft golden lights, sat a diamond ring that had once belonged to her. The ring Michael Jordan had slipped onto her finger 34 years ago, promising forever. But forever had ended 17 years ago. The autumn wind whipped through downtown Chicago, cutting through her coat. Juanita pulled her scarf tighter and checked her watch. Marcus Chen, the store manager, had called her that morning with an urgent message. "Mrs. Vinoy, please come to the store immediately. It's about your ring. Something has happened." Her heart had dropped. She needed the money from that sale, desperately. The glass door chimed as she entered. Marcus looked up from behind the counter, his expression unreadable. He was a kind man in his 50s with silver hair and gentle eyes that had seen countless precious items pass through his store. Mrs. Vinoy, he said softly, gesturing toward his private office in the back. Thank you for coming so quickly. Juanita followed him, her stomach churning. Through the doorway, she could see the velvet box sitting on his desk, the box that should contain her ring. The ring she'd brought in 2 weeks ago when the bills started piling up and her pride finally crumbled. Is something wrong? She asked, lowering herself into the leather chair across from his desk. Did the buyer back out? Marcus sat down slowly, folding his hands on the desk. His face held something she couldn't quite identify. Sympathy? Concern? Something else? Mrs. Vinoy, there was no buyer, he said carefully. Juanita's breath caught. What do you mean? You said you had someone interested. You said, please, let me explain. Marcus opened a drawer and pulled out a manila envelope alongside the velvet box. 3 days ago, someone came into my store, someone who had been waiting for you to bring this ring in. Confusion clouded Juanita's mind. Waiting? I don't understand. Marcus opened the velvet box and Juanita gasped. The ring was still there, but it looked different. The original diamond sparkled as brilliantly as ever, but surrounding it were smaller stones she'd never seen before. Even from across the desk, she could see tiny engravings on each stone. What did you do to my ring? She whispered. I didn't do anything, Marcus said gently. He did. The word hung in the air like a thunderclap. He. There was only one he who would care about this ring. Michael. Juanita's voice barely rose above a whisper. Marcus nodded. Mr. Jordan came to see me 7 years ago, not long after you and I first met when you brought in some other jewelry for appraisal. He asked me to call him immediately if you ever tried to sell your wedding ring. He said you were too proud to ask for help, and the ring would be the last thing you'd let go of. Juanita's throat tightened. 7 years ago, Michael had been watching, waiting, knowing her well enough to predict this moment. He's been paying me a retainer all these years, Marcus continued, just to watch for this. When you came in 2 weeks ago, I called him that same evening. You had no right, Juanita started, but her anger felt hollow. He made me promise something, Marcus interrupted gently. He pushed the manila envelope across the desk toward her. He made me promise that before I showed you what he did, you would read this letter. He said you needed to understand the why before you saw the what. Juanita stared at the envelope. Her name was written across the front in Michael's distinctive handwriting, the same handwriting she'd seen on birthday cards and anniversary notes throughout their 17-year marriage. Her fingers touched the envelope, but she couldn't bring herself to open it yet. Mrs. Vinoy, Marcus said softly, I've been in the jewelry business for 30 years. I've seen people buy engagement rings, sell divorce rings, pawn family heirlooms. But what Mr. Jordan did? He paused, his eyes glistening. In all my years, I have never seen anything like it. Juanita looked up at him, tears beginning to blur her vision. What did he do, Marcus? Marcus smiled sadly. Everything you deserved 17 years ago. But to understand it, you need to read that letter. And Mrs. Vinoy? He gestured to the transformed ring. That's just the beginning. Juanita's fingers traced the edge of the manila envelope, but she couldn't open it. Not yet. Her mind was spinning backward, pulling her through time like a current she couldn't resist. Marcus, I need a moment, she whispered. Of course. Take all the time you need. He stood and quietly left the office, closing the door behind him. Alone, Juanita closed her eyes and let the memories wash over her. Chicago, 1987. 28-year-old Juanita Vinoy had never cared about basketball. While the entire city of Chicago buzzed about the Bulls and their rising star, Juanita focused on her job as a loan officer at First National Bank. She had goals: save money, help her mother retire, maybe start her own financial consulting business someday. You need to live a little, her best friend Carmen Rodriguez would say, over coffee at their favorite diner on South Side. Carmen was a nurse at Rush University Medical Center, and she loved setting Juanita up on dates. I live plenty, Juanita would reply, stirring cream into her coffee. I just don't need a man to do it. Not any man, Carmen grinned, but what about a tall, handsome athlete? My cousin works with the Bulls. She could introduce you? Absolutely not. Juanita shook her head firmly. Athletes are too much drama. Too many women, too much travel, too much ego. I want someone who sees me, really sees me. Carmen laughed. Good luck finding that in Chicago right now. Every man in this city is either watching basketball or playing it. One rainy Tuesday in October, Juanita was processing paperwork when the bank's front door opened. A tall figure walked in, water dripping from his jacket. He was soaked through, his shoes squeaking on the marble floor. Excuse me, he said, approaching her desk. I need to talk to someone about a loan. Juanita looked up and saw a young man with kind eyes and a nervous smile. He was tall, very tall, but carried himself with surprising gentleness. Have a seat, she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. What kind of loan are you looking for? It's for my mother, he explained, settling into the chair. She needs some repairs on her house. New roof, some electrical work. I want to help her, but she won't take money from me. She's proud like that. So I thought if I got a loan in my name, paid it back myself, she wouldn't feel like charity. Juanita smiled. A man who understood pride and respected his mother. That was rare. That's very thoughtful, she said, pulling out a loan application form. Let me get some information. Your name? Michael, he said. Michael Jordan. Juanita's pen paused on the paper. She looked up at him, studying his face. There was something familiar about him, but she couldn't place it. Like the basketball player? She asked. His nervous smile widened into a grin. I am the basketball player. Juanita blinked. She'd seen his face on billboards and in the newspaper, but sitting across from her, wet and worried about his mother, he seemed nothing like those larger-than-life images. Oh, she said simply. Well, Mr. Jordan, basketball player or not, you still need to fill out this application. He laughed. A genuine, surprised laugh. You're the first person in months who hasn't asked me for an autograph or wanted to talk about the game. I don't follow basketball, Juanita admitted. No offense. None taken, Michael said, still smiling. Actually, that's kind of refreshing. They spent the next hour going through the loan application. Michael asked about her job, her family, her neighborhood. He listened carefully when she explained the loan terms, nodding and asking smart questions. When she mentioned her mother worked as a seamstress, his face lit up. My mother sews too, he said. She made all our clothes growing up. 5 kids and she kept us looking sharp on almost nothing. There was no arrogance in him, no assumption that his fame meant special treatment. He was just a son trying to help his mother. The loan was approved. As Michael stood to leave, he paused at her desk. Can I ask you something, Juanita? He'd remembered her name from the nameplate on her desk. Sure. Would you let me take you to dinner? To say thank you for helping my mother? Juanita hesitated. She'd sworn off dating athletes, but something in Michael's eyes, a vulnerability beneath the confidence, made her curious. Just dinner, she said. Nothing fancy? Deal. His smile could have lit up the entire bank. 2 years later, 1989, Juanita stood in her small apartment, looking at the dinner she'd prepared. Baked chicken, green beans, cornbread, comfort food, nothing fancy. Michael was coming over after practice and she was nervous. They'd been dating for almost 2 years now. Michael kept his promise about nothing fancy. He took her to neighborhood restaurants, helped her move furniture, brought her mother flowers every Sunday. When reporters followed them, Michael shielded her. When fans interrupted their dates, he politely excused himself and gave Juanita his full attention again. He's different with you, Carmen observed one evening. On TV, he's all fire and competition. But when he looks at you, he's soft. Juanita knew it was true. Michael was complicated, driven and intense, but also surprisingly vulnerable. He talked about his fears of failing, of not living up to expectations, of losing himself in the fame. You keep me real, he'd told her once. Everyone else wants Michael Jordan, the basketball player. You just want Michael. The doorbell rang, pulling Juanita from her thoughts. She opened it to find Michael standing there in jeans and a simple sweater, holding a single rose. Hi, he said, and she noticed his hands were shaking. Are you okay? She asked as he stepped inside. Yeah, He set the rose down on her counter and turned to face her. Juanita, I need to tell you something. Her heart started racing. Was he ending things? Was there someone else? I'm not good at this, Michael continued, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. I'm good at basketball. I can read defenses, make impossible shots, win games. But this? He opened the box, revealing a diamond ring that sparkled in her kitchen light. This terrifies me. Juanita's breath caught. I love you, Michael said, his voice thick with emotion. I love how you don't care about my stats or my endorsements. I love how you challenge me. I love how you make me want to be better, not as a player, but as a person. I'm good at basketball, Juanita. But I need you to teach me how to be good at life. Tears streamed down Juanita's face. Will you marry me? He asked. Will you be patient with me while I figure out how to balance everything? Will you help me become the man I want to be? Yes, she whispered. Yes, Michael. I will. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and they held each other in her tiny kitchen, both crying, both terrified, both hopeful. Present day. Marcus Chen's office. Juanita opened her eyes back in the jewelry store office. That ring on her finger had felt like a promise of forever. They'd been so young, so hopeful, so certain that love would be enough. But it hadn't been. She picked up the manila envelope, her hand steadier now. Whatever Michael had written, whatever he'd done, she needed to know. Marcus knocked softly and opened the door. Mrs. Vinoy, before you read the letter, there's something else. He pulled out his phone and showed her a photograph. It was her ring, the transformed ring, displayed in the store's front window. Next to it was a small plaque. Juanita leaned closer, reading the words engraved on the plaque. Her breath stopped. He put that in the window for 2 weeks, Marcus explained quietly. Hundreds of people saw it. Some took pictures. A few reporters called asking questions. But Mr. Jordan refused to comment. He said this message wasn't for the public. It was for you. Juanita's vision blurred with tears as she read the plaque again. This ring represents 17 years of marriage to an extraordinary woman. It's not for sale because some things are priceless. The owner of this ring gave me 3 beautiful children, taught me about sacrifice, and showed me what true strength looks like. If she ever needs anything, she just has to ask. MJ. Oh, Michael, she whispered. Marcus placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Read the letter, Mrs. Vinoy. He wanted you to understand everything before you decided what comes next. Juanita nodded, clutching the envelope. Her past and present were colliding, and somewhere in Michael's words waited the truth about why he'd done all this. She opened the envelope with trembling fingers. The letter was thick. Several pages of Michael's handwriting on cream-colored stationery. But before Juanita could read the first word, another memory seized her, pulling her back through time once more. She set the letter down gently on Marcus's desk. I need another moment, she said quietly. Marcus nodded with understanding and left her alone again. September 2nd, 1989, Las Vegas. Juanita stood in a simple white dress in a small chapel in Las Vegas. No cameras, no reporters, no crowds. Just her family, Michael's family, Carmen, and a few close friends. Michael held both her hands, looking at her like she was the only person in the world. When he said his vows, his voice cracked with emotion. I promise to always come home to you, he said. No matter how far basketball takes me, you're my home. Juanita believed him. She believed every word. Their first year of marriage was beautiful. Michael played basketball, but he called her every night from away games. He left notes hidden in her purse. Miss you already, and counting down until I'm home. When he was in Chicago, they cooked dinner together, watched movies, talked for hours about everything and nothing. In 1991, their first son Jeffrey was born. Juanita watched Michael hold their tiny baby with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face. I'm going to be the best father, he whispered. I promise you, Juanita. I'm going to do this right. She kissed his forehead. I know you will. But then the Bulls won their first championship, then their second, then their third. and with each victory, Michael belonged less to her and more to the world. 1995. Their Chicago mansion. 7-year-old Jeffrey sat at the kitchen table, drawing a picture of his family. Marcus Jr., age 5, played with toy cars on the floor. Baby Jasmine slept in her carrier beside Juanita as she prepared birthday cupcakes. "Is Daddy coming to my party?" Jeffrey asked without looking up from his drawing. Juanita's heart sank. She'd asked Michael 3 times to confirm. "He'd promised he'd be there." "He said he would, sweetie," she answered carefully. But at 3 o'clock, when Jeffrey's friends arrived with their parents, Michael wasn't there. At 4 o'clock, when they sang happy birthday, his seat remained empty. At 5 o'clock, when the last guest left, Jeffrey went to his room and closed the door. Juanita found him lying on his bed, crying silently. "Baby, I'm so sorry," she said, sitting beside him and rubbing his back. "He promised," Jeffrey whispered. "He always promises." "I know. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes." "I don't care about basketball," Jeffrey suddenly shouted, sitting up. "I don't care if he's famous. I just wanted him to eat cake with me." Juanita pulled her son into her arms, her own tears falling into his hair. She had no words that could fix this. Michael came home at 11 that night. The house was dark, except for the lamp in the living room where Juanita sat waiting. "I'm sorry," he said immediately, seeing her face. "The practice ran long, and then Coach wanted to review plays and—" "He cried himself to sleep," Juanita said quietly. Michael's face crumpled. He sank onto the couch, head in his hands. "I'm a terrible father." "You're not terrible. You're just absent." "I didn't mean to miss it. I just lost track of time." "You always lose track of time, Michael. Basketball time. But your son's childhood? That's on a clock too. And you can't get these years back." Michael looked up at her with anguished eyes. "I don't know how to be both, Juanita. When I'm here, I feel guilty for not practicing. When I'm practicing, I feel guilty for not being home. I can't win." Juanita moved to sit beside him. She took his hand. "Marriage isn't about winning. Being a father isn't about winning. It's about showing up, really showing up. Not just being in the room, but being present." "I'm trying," he whispered. "I know you are. But trying isn't enough anymore. Our kids need you. I need you." Michael pulled her close, and they sat in the dark living room holding each other. For a moment, Juanita thought they'd turned a corner. The next morning, Michael went to Jeffrey's room with a mountain of new toys. Basketball shoes, video games, a new bike. Jeffrey looked at everything, then at his father. "I didn't want toys, Dad. I wanted you." Michael stood there, helpless, not understanding that his son couldn't be won like a championship. 1998. After the 6th championship. The Bulls had just won their 6th NBA championship. Chicago exploded with celebration. Michael was at the absolute peak of his career, the greatest basketball player who ever lived. But in their bedroom, late at night, Juanita and Michael barely spoke anymore. "You did it," Juanita said, sitting on the edge of their bed. 6 championships. Everything you dreamed of." "Yeah," Michael said, but his voice was flat. "Are you happy?" He looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in months. "I don't know. Are you?" Juanita wanted to lie. She wanted to say yes, everything was fine. They were fine. But she was so tired of pretending. "No," she whispered. "I'm not happy, Michael. I feel like I'm raising our children alone. I feel like I married basketball, not a man." "That's not fair," Michael said, his voice rising. "I'm providing for this family. You live in a mansion. Our kids have everything. Except a father who comes to their school plays. Except a husband who remembers our anniversary. Except a partner who asks about my day. I'm doing the best I can." "Your best isn't enough." The words burst out of Juanita before she could stop them. The silence that followed was deafening. Michael's face hardened. "Maybe you just don't understand what it takes to be great. Maybe you don't understand what it takes to be a good husband and father," Juanita shot back. They stared at each other across a distance that had nothing to do with the physical space between them. "I need to think," Juanita finally said. "About us." About whether I can keep doing this. Are you threatening to leave me? Michael's voice was sharp with disbelief. I'm telling you, I'm drowning, and you're too busy chasing trophies to notice. 2001. A glimmer of hope. Michael retired from basketball. Juanita thought maybe, finally, they could rebuild what they'd lost. I want to fix this, Michael said one evening. I want to be the husband you deserve. Then we need help, Juanita replied. Real help. Counseling. Michael hated the idea at first. Champions didn't need counseling, but he saw the pain in Juanita's eyes and agreed. In their therapist's office, Dr. Patricia Williams asked Michael a simple question. When was the last time you asked Juanita about her dreams? Michael opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no answer. When was the last time you told her about yours? Dr. Williams asked Juanita. I stopped having dreams, Juanita said quietly. I just had responsibilities. The therapy helped them talk. Really talk. Michael began to understand that his competitive nature, the thing that made him unstoppable on the court, made him impossible at home. He had to win every argument. He couldn't be vulnerable. He couldn't admit weakness. Being vulnerable feels like losing, Michael admitted in one session. But marriage requires vulnerability, Dr. Williams explained. Without it, you're just two people living in the same house. They tried. Michael started coming to dinner every night. He asked Juanita about her volunteer work at church. They planned a trip to Hawaii, just the two of them. In Hawaii, walking on the beach at sunset, Michael held Juanita's hand like he used to when they were dating. I love you, he said. I know I'm not good at showing it, but I do. I love you too, Juanita replied. I just wish love was enough. It has to be enough, Michael said desperately. I don't know what else to give you. And that was the problem. Juanita didn't need more things. She needed more of him, the real him, not the legend, not the competitor, just Michael. 2002, the first divorce filing. Juanita filed for divorce in January 2002. The media exploded with speculation. Michael was devastated. Please don't do this, he begged her. Give me one more chance. Juanita saw the pain in his eyes. Genuine, raw pain. She saw their children's faces, confused and scared. She saw 17 years of history. She withdrew the divorce petition. They tried again. But trying and succeeding were different things. Michael came out of retirement to play for the Washington Wizards. He was gone again. The distance returned. Present day, Marcus Chen's office. Juanita opened her eyes, back in the jewelry store. Her cheeks were wet with tears. Those years had been so complicated. She loved Michael deeply, but love wasn't enough to bridge the gap between who he was and who she needed him to be. She picked up the letter again, her hands steadier now. Whatever Michael had written, whatever he understood now, she needed to know if he'd finally learned the lessons that came too late for their marriage. The first line of the letter made her breath catch. Juanita, if you're reading this, it means you tried to sell your ring. Marcus called me when you brought it in, like I asked him to years ago. Juanita pressed the letter to her chest, overwhelmed. Even after all these years, even after the divorce, Michael had been watching over her, waiting, knowing her pride would eventually break. She took a deep breath and began to read. Juanita, if you're reading this, it means you tried to sell your ring. Marcus called me when you brought it in, like I asked him 2 years ago. I've been paying attention, even when you thought I wasn't. I know you're struggling. Don't be angry that I know. Our kids worry about you, even if you try to hide it from them. Jeffrey called me last month. He said you sold your car and told him you just wanted to simplify. He didn't believe you. Neither did I. I'm writing this letter because I need you to understand something before you see what I did. This isn't about money. It's not about the ring. It's about something I should have said 17 years ago but didn't know how. You were right to leave me. Juanita stopped reading. Her hands shook so violently that the paper rattled. She set the letter down on Marcus's desk and stood up, pacing the small office. Michael admitting she was right? Michael admitting anything? This wasn't the man she'd divorced. She forced herself to sit back down and continue reading. I spent our entire marriage trying to win. Win games, win championships, win arguments, win respect. But I never understood that marriage isn't about winning. It's about being there. Really being there. You tried to tell me, that night after Jeffrey's birthday, in Hawaii, during counseling. You told me in 100 different ways that you needed a partner, not a champion. But I couldn't stop competing long enough to hear you. Juanita's mind drifted back to the moment when she knew their marriage was truly over. April 2006. The final conversation. Juanita sat in their living room overlooking Lake Michigan. The house was too big, too quiet, too empty even when everyone was home. Jeffrey was 17 now, preparing for college. Marcus Jr. was 15, deep into his own teenage world. Jasmine was 8, still young enough to believe her parents might work things out. But Juanita knew they wouldn't. Michael walked into the room, already sensing what was coming. He'd been waiting for this conversation for years. "I'm filing for divorce again," Juanita said without preamble. "And this time, I'm not changing my mind." Michael sank into the chair across from her. He didn't argue. He didn't plead. He just nodded slowly. "I knew this was coming," he said quietly. "I just kept hoping I'd wake up one day and know how to fix it." "Some things can't be fixed, Michael," Juanita said, tears streaming down her face. "Some things just end." "When did you stop loving me?" His voice cracked on the question. "I never stopped loving you. That's what makes this so hard. I love you, Michael. But I can't live with you. I can't keep being lonely in a marriage. I can't keep making excuses to our children for why their father misses important moments. I can't keep pretending this is enough." Michael leaned forward, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. "What if I retire completely? What if I stay home? You tried that. You lasted 2 years before you went back to basketball, and even when you were physically here, you weren't really here. Your mind was always somewhere else, planning the next business deal, the next endorsement, the next thing to win." "I don't know how to be anything else," Michael whispered. "I know, and that's why I have to go. I need to remember who Juanita is. Not Juanita Jordan, wife of the greatest basketball player, just Juanita. The woman who had dreams before she spent 17 years supporting someone else's. Did I steal your dreams?" Michael looked up, his eyes red. Juanita wiped her tears. "No, I gave them to you willingly. I thought we were building something together. But somewhere along the way, it became all about you. Your career, your legacy, your needs. And I disappeared." "I'm sorry," Michael's voice was barely audible. "I know you are. But sorry doesn't give me back those years. Sorry doesn't make you show up differently. Sorry is just a word, Michael. And I need more than words." They sat in silence as the sun set over the lake, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. It was beautiful and sad, like their marriage. "The kids," Michael started. "We'll be fine," Juanita finished. "We'll co-parent. We'll be respectful. We'll protect them as much as we can. But Michael, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Be the father to them that you couldn't be during our marriage. Now that you don't have to balance being a husband, just be their dad. Really be there for them. They need you." "I promise," Michael said. And this time, Juanita believed him. The divorce, 2006. The divorce proceedings took months. Lawyers, negotiations, media speculation. Every detail of their private lives became public consumption. Juanita received $168 million in the settlement, one of the largest divorce settlements in history. The headlines screamed, "Most expensive divorce in sports history," and "Jordan pays the price for failure at home." But the media didn't see the private moments. They didn't see Michael helping Juanita pack boxes in their bedroom, both of them crying as they separated 17 years of memories. They didn't see 8-year-old Jasmine sobbing in her father's arms, asking why mommy had to leave. They didn't see Jeffrey, trying to be strong at 17, telling his mother, "It's okay, Mom. You deserve to be happy." They didn't see Marcus Jr., angry and confused, blaming both his parents equally. On the day Juanita moved into her new home, Michael showed up unannounced. He stood on her doorstep holding a box. "I found this in the attic," he said. "I thought you might want it." Inside were photo albums from their early years together. Pictures of them laughing at street festivals, cooking in their first small apartment, holding newborn Jeffrey. "We were happy once," Michael said softly. "We were," Juanita agreed. "But people grow. Sometimes they grow together. Sometimes they grow apart." Michael set the box down inside her doorway. Before leaving, he turned back one last time. "I'll never forgive myself for losing you," he said. "Don't spend your life looking backward, Michael," Juanita replied gently. "Learn from this. Be better for the next person. Be better for our kids." He nodded and walked away. Juanita closed the door and allowed herself to collapse against it, sobbing. Freedom and grief felt exactly the same. 2007-2023, the 17 years. After the first few years after the divorce, Juanita thrived. She traveled to places Michael had always been too busy to visit. She took art classes. She volunteered at women's shelters. She rediscovered parts of herself that had been buried under the weight of being Mrs. Michael Jordan. Her children adjusted. Michael kept his promise. He showed up for their lives in ways he never had during the marriage. He attended Jeffrey's college graduation. He helped Marcus Jr. through anxiety and therapy. He never missed one of Jasmine's dance recitals. "Dad's different now," Jasmine told Juanita one day when she was 15. "He actually listens." Juanita was happy for her children, even if it stung a little that Michael had learned these lessons too late for their marriage. But by 2015, Juanita's financial situation began to change. She'd invested in a restaurant chain her sister's friend recommended. It failed within 2 years. She'd put money into a tech startup that her financial advisor promised was the next big thing. It went bankrupt. She'd purchased commercial real estate right before the market crashed. She'd also been generous, too generous. Her sister needed help with medical bills. Her cousin needed money for his daughter's college. Her church needed funds for a new community center. Friends asked for loans they never repaid. Juanita never said no. Saying no felt selfish after receiving so much in the divorce. By 2020, $168 million had dwindled to less than $5 million. By 2023, she was down to her last $800,000. The bills kept coming. Property taxes on the house Michael had given her. Insurance. Utilities. Supporting her aging mother. She sold jewelry first, then art pieces, then her car like Jeffrey noticed. She downsized, moved to a smaller home. But she told no one how bad things had gotten. Pride. That same pride Michael had understood when he'd wanted to help his mother 36 years ago. Finally, one day in October 2023, Juanita opened her jewelry box and stared at the one thing she'd kept through everything: her wedding ring. It was just metal and stone. It represented a marriage that ended 17 years ago. Surely she could sell it. But when she held it, she remembered Michael's shaking hands as he proposed in her kitchen. She remembered his promise. "I'm going to learn how to be good at life." She cried for an hour before calling Marcus Chen. Present day, back to the letter. Juanita wiped her eyes and continued reading Michael's letter. "When you filed for divorce the second time, I knew you meant it. And I knew I'd lost the most important game of my life, not because of the score, but because I never learned the rules. After you left, I had to become the father I should have been all along. Jeffrey needed help with his business. Marcus struggled with anxiety. Jasmine had questions about relationships and men that I wasn't prepared to answer. But I showed up. I listened. I stopped trying to fix everything and just was there. And you know what? I learned something. Being present is harder than winning championships. Being vulnerable is scarier than any playoff game. Admitting you were wrong is more painful than any injury. You taught me that, Juanita. But you had to leave for me to learn it." Juanita pressed the letter to her chest, overwhelmed. This was the Michael she'd needed 17 years ago, but he'd only become this Michael after losing her. She took a shaky breath and read the final paragraph on the page. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry I chose basketball over our son's birthday. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you I was scared of failing as a husband. I'm sorry I made you feel alone in a marriage. I'm sorry I waited until you were gone to become the man you deserved." There was more to the letter, but Juanita had to stop. Marcus knocked softly and entered with a glass of water. "Take your time," he said kindly. "There's more to read, and more to show you." Juanita nodded, drinking the water, steadying herself for whatever came next. Juanita set down the water glass and picked up the letter again. Her heart pounded as she continued reading where she'd left off. This letter isn't asking for forgiveness. It's not asking for anything. It's just saying what I should have said in 2006. You were an amazing wife and mother. You held our family together with grace and strength. The problem was never you. It was me. For years after the divorce, I told myself that we just wanted different things, that we grew apart, that it was nobody's fault. But that was a lie I told myself so I could sleep at night. The truth is, I failed you. I failed our marriage. I chose my ego over your needs. I chose the roar of the crowd over the quiet moments with you. I chose being a legend over being a good husband. Juanita's tears fell onto the paper, smudging the ink slightly. She'd waited 17 years to hear these words. Part of her had given up hope that Michael would ever understand. 3 years ago, something happened that changed my perspective. I was at a charity event for underprivileged kids. A boy, maybe 10 years old, came up to me with a basketball to sign. But instead of asking about championships, he asked me a question that stopped me cold. "Mr. Jordan," he said, "what's your biggest win?" Everyone around us went silent, expecting me to talk about the 6 championships, the Olympic medals, the MVP awards. But I looked at that kid and thought about what actually mattered. And I realized none of those trophies meant anything compared to our children. "My 3 kids," I told him. "They're my biggest win." The kid smiled and walked away happy. But I stood there feeling like a fraud. Because yes, Jeffrey, Marcus, and Jasmine are incredible. But they're incredible because of you, Juanita. You raised them while I was chasing trophies. You taught them values, empathy, kindness. You were there for every scraped knee, every homework struggle, every heartbreak. I got credit for being their father, but you did the actual work of parenting. Juanita closed her eyes, remembering all those nights alone with sick children, all those school events where she made excuses for Michael's absence, all those times she had to be both mother and father. That night after the charity event, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about my biggest win and my biggest loss. My biggest loss wasn't failing to win a 7th championship or losing endorsement deals. My biggest loss was you. Losing your trust, losing your partnership. Losing the chance to grow old with the woman who saw me before I was Michael Jordan the legend. I started therapy after that night. Real therapy, not the couples counseling we tried that I never fully committed to. I needed to understand why I couldn't be vulnerable. Why I had to win every argument. Why I equated being present with being weak. Dr. Harrison helped me see that my competitive drive, the thing that made me great at basketball, made me terrible at relationships. On the court, you can't show weakness. You can't admit doubt. You have to dominate. But in a marriage, those same traits destroy everything. Juanita thought about all their arguments, how Michael could never just apologize without defending himself first. How he turned every discussion into a debate he had to win. I learned that being vulnerable isn't weakness. It's courage. Admitting you're wrong isn't losing. It's growing. And being present, really present, requires more strength than any championship run. I wish I'd learned these things while we were married. I wish I'd been brave enough to say, "I don't know how to do this," instead of pretending I had everything under control. I wish I'd asked for help instead of pushing you away. But I didn't, and I lost you, and I deserve to lose you. The next paragraph made Juanita's breath catch. 6 months ago, Jeffrey called me. He was worried about you. He said you'd been making small comments about money, about downsizing, about simplifying your life. He knows you too well, Juanita. He knows those words mean you're struggling but too proud to ask for help. I hired a private investigator. Don't be angry. I needed to know if you were okay. What I learned broke my heart. The failed investments, the restaurant that went under, the real estate crash. But more than that, all the people you helped. Your sister's medical bills, your cousin's daughter's college tuition, your church's community center, friends who needed loans. You gave and gave and gave, just like you did during our marriage. You gave everything to everyone else and kept nothing for yourself. That's who you are, Juanita. That's who you've always been. The most generous person I've ever known. But generosity without boundaries becomes self-destruction. Juanita wiped her eyes. He was right. She'd never learned to say no, never learned to protect herself first. When the investigator told me you were down to your last savings, I knew what would happen eventually. You'd sell the house, the furniture, the jewelry. And finally, you'd sell the ring, the last piece of our marriage, the last thing you kept that connected you to those 17 years. So I went to Marcus Chen 7 years ago. I gave him a retainer and a simple instruction. If Juanita Vinoy ever tries to sell her wedding ring, call me immediately. Don't let her sell it. And give her this letter. I knew this day would come. I knew your pride would finally break. And I wanted to be ready. Juanita looked up at the office door, processing this revelation. Michael had been preparing for this moment for 7 years. Watching. Waiting. Planning. By now, Marcus has shown you what I did to the ring. I had it redesigned with stones representing our children, Jeffrey, Marcus, and Jasmine. I added the words family, love, and always, because that's what you gave me, even when I didn't deserve it. I also had Marcus display it in his window with a plaque. I wanted the world to know, not for publicity but for truth, that you were an extraordinary wife, that you deserved better than what I gave you, that some things are priceless, and I wanted you to know that if you ever needed anything, ever, all you had to do was ask. I would be there, not as your ex-husband trying to win you back, but as someone who owes you a debt that can never be fully repaid. The letter continued on one more page. Juanita's hands trembled as she turned it over. But I didn't just redesign the ring, Juanita. I did something else. Something I should have done years ago. Do you remember the college fund you started for Jasmine? The account you opened with $10,000 when she was born? You thought I didn't know about it, but I did. I watched you make deposits every month, even when money was tight. Even after the divorce, you kept adding to it. I've restructured that account. It's now a trust fund, not just for Jasmine, but for you. Check your email when you get home. You'll find the account details and new balance. It's $2.5 million, Juanita. Before you protest, let me explain. This isn't charity. This isn't me trying to buy your forgiveness or assuage my guilt. This is what I owed you all along. Security, partnership, and the freedom to not worry about money. You held our family together for 17 years while I built my empire. You sacrificed your dreams so I could chase mine. You never asked for recognition or credit, but you deserve both. This money is yours to use however you want. Start a business, travel the world. Help more people if that's what makes you happy. Or just breathe without stress for the first time in years. You earned this by being the foundation our family was built on. By being there when I wasn't. By teaching our children how to be good human beings. By showing me, even after I lost you, what true strength looks like. Juanita couldn't stop crying now. The letter blurred before her eyes. I know what you're thinking. This is too much. I can't accept this. But Juanita, you can. And you should. Not for me, but for yourself. For once in your life, let someone take care of you the way you've taken care of everyone else. I'm not the same man you divorced 17 years ago. Therapy, time, and perspective have changed me. I've learned to be vulnerable. I've learned to admit when I'm wrong. I've learned that being present is more important than being perfect. I learned these lessons too late to save our marriage. But I learned them in time to be a better father to our children. And maybe, if you'll let me, I can learn to be a better friend to you. I'm not asking for anything, Juanita. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, not gratitude. I'm just asking that you accept help from someone who should have been helping you all along. You were never second to basketball. I just didn't know how to show up for both. And I chose wrong. That's on me, not you, never you. With respect and gratitude, Michael. Juanita sat in silence, the letter resting in her lap. 28 years of history, love, pain, growth, loss, condensed into these pages. Marcus knocked gently and entered. Mrs. Vinoy, there's one more thing. Mr. Ace. Jordan is on the phone. He asked if you'd be willing to speak with him, but only if you want to. No pressure. Juanita looked at the redesigned ring in its velvet box, the letter in her hands, and thought about the trust fund that would change everything. She thought about Michael at 25, nervous and fumbling with a ring box in her kitchen. She thought about Michael at 43, unable to be vulnerable or present. And now, Michael at 60, finally understanding what she'd tried to tell him for 17 years. "Yes," she whispered. "I'll talk to him." Marcus handed her his phone. Juanita's heart raced as she lifted it to her ear. "Hello, Michael." "Juanita." Michael's voice came through the phone, soft and uncertain. It was so different from the confident, commanding voice she remembered. "Did you read the letter?" "Yes." Her own voice was barely a whisper. "All of it?" "Every word." There was a long pause. Juanita could hear Michael breathing on the other end, could sense him gathering courage. "I meant every word," he finally said. "I'm not trying to fix anything or win you back. I just needed you to know that I finally understand. You didn't fail our marriage. I did. And you shouldn't have to struggle because of my failures." "Michael, this is too much," Juanita started. "It's not enough," he interrupted gently. "It'll never be enough to make up for the years I wasn't present. But it's a start." Juanita closed her eyes, tears still streaming down her face. "Why now? After 17 years, why now?" Michael was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. "Last month, I was at a charity basketball game. Afterward, a reporter asked me the usual questions, legacy, greatest moments, that kind of thing. But then a kid in the crowd, maybe 12 years old, shouted a question that everyone laughed at. What did he ask?" Juanita found herself genuinely curious. "He asked what my biggest regret was." Michael paused. "Everyone expected me to say something about basketball, a missed shot, a loss, whatever. But you know what came to mind immediately? That night after Jeffrey's 7th birthday. When he said he didn't want toys, he wanted me." Juanita's throat tightened. She remembered that night so clearly. "I've carried that moment for 28 years, Michael continued. "But last month when that kid asked the question, I realized something. My biggest regret isn't missing Jeffrey's birthday. It's that I had to lose you before I learned how to show up. You tried to teach me for 17 years, but I was too stubborn, too proud, too competitive to listen. Michael, please, let me finish. I need to say this." He took a breath. "Jeffrey called me 6 weeks ago. He told me you'd been selling things, downsizing, making comments about money. He was worried. So was Marcus Jr. Even Jasmine noticed something was off when she visited you." "They told you?" Juanita felt a flash of embarrassment. "Don't be mad at them. They love you. They were scared for you. And Juanita, they know you'd never ask for help. You're too proud. Just like my mother was. Just like I was when you tried to tell me I needed to change." Juanita wiped her eyes with her free hand. "I didn't want anyone to worry. I know. But that's the thing. You spent our entire marriage taking care of everyone else. You're still doing it. When do you get to be taken care of?" The question hung in the air. Juanita had no answer. "The trust fund isn't charity," Michael said firmly. "It's not guilt money. It's what I should have given you in the divorce. True security and partnership. You held our family together while I built an empire. You deserve to benefit from that empire too." "I got $168 million in the divorce," Juanita protested weakly. "And you spent it helping everyone else, didn't you?" Michael's voice was gentle, not accusatory. "Your sister's medical bills, your cousin's daughter's college, your church, friends who needed loans they never repaid. Am I wrong?" Juanita said nothing, which was answer enough. "That's who you are," Michael continued. "The most generous person I've ever known. But generosity without boundaries becomes self-destruction. Someone needs to take care of you for once. Let it be me. Not as your husband, I lost that right. But as the father of your children. As someone who owes you more than he can ever repay." "I don't know what to say," Juanita whispered. "Say you'll stop selling your memories. Say you'll stop struggling alone. Say you'll let me be the partner in your success that I never was in our marriage." Marcus Chen stood quietly by the door, giving Juanita privacy but staying close in case she needed anything. She looked at the redesigned ring again, seeing her children's names engraved in the stones. "Can I ask you something?" Juanita said into the phone. Anything. Are you okay, Michael? Is something wrong? This feels like… I don't know. Like you're trying to make amends before I die? Michael's laugh was soft, sad. I'm not dying, Juanita. At least not that I know of. But 3 years ago, I had a health scare. Nothing serious, but it made me think about mortality, about legacy, about what really matters. What happened? High blood pressure, stress-related issues. The doctor said I needed to slow down, take better care of myself. It wasn't life-threatening, but it was a wake-up call. I started thinking about what I'd leave behind when I'm gone. He paused, and Juanita could hear the vulnerability in his voice, something she'd rarely heard during their marriage. My basketball legacy is secure, Michael continued. People will remember the championships, the records, the shoes, but my life legacy, that's our children. That's the example I set for them about manhood, marriage, and making things right. They're wonderful kids, Juanita said softly. Because of you. I want Jeffrey, Marcus, and Jasmine to see that their father made terrible mistakes but took responsibility. That he honored their mother even after divorce. That real strength is admitting when you're wrong and doing everything possible to make amends. Juanita felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness exactly, but something close. Understanding, maybe. Or acknowledgement that people could change, even if the change came too late. There's something else, Michael said hesitantly. Marcus has something more to show you. I didn't just set up the trust fund. There's another gift, a bigger one. But I wanted to ask you about it first over the phone, before you see it. What is it? Juanita's heart started racing again. Do you remember what you told me during our last counseling session? Right before you filed for divorce the second time? Juanita thought back to 2006, to that therapist's office, to the moment she knew it was truly over. I said a lot of things in counseling, Michael. You said your dream, if money was no object, was to create a community center. A place where families could get help staying together. Where parents could take classes on communication and parenting. Where kids could get tutoring and mentoring. You said you wished you could build something that would help other couples avoid what we went through. Juanita's breath caught. She'd forgotten about that conversation. It had been a throwaway comment during a particularly painful session, when the therapist asked what she'd do with her life after the divorce. You remembered that? She whispered. I remember everything you said, Juanita. I just didn't listen at the time. But I'm listening now. Marcus stepped forward and placed a large envelope on the desk in front of Juanita. She stared at it, her hand still holding the phone. What is this, Michael? Open it, please. With trembling fingers, Juanita set down the phone on speaker and opened the envelope. Inside was a thick stack of documents. The first page was a deed to a property in North Carolina. Michael, what did you do? Her voice shook. Keep looking, he said through the speaker. The next pages showed architectural plans for a beautiful building. A community center with a gym, classrooms, a commercial kitchen, office spaces, and a memorial garden. The detail was incredible. Someone had spent months designing this. It's near Charlotte where my basketball legacy is centered, Michael explained. But this center won't be about basketball. It'll be about families, about giving people the resources and support they need to stay together. Everything you said you wanted to build. Juanita found a page titled Endowment Fund. The number at the bottom made her gasp. $5 million, she breathed. Fully funded, Michael confirmed. You'll never have to worry about money for operations, staff salaries, programs, nothing. You run it however you want. Or you hire people to run it. Or you don't run it at all. The choice is completely yours. Michael, I can't, this is… Juanita couldn't form words. Look at the name, he said softly. Juanita flipped to the next page. At the top, in elegant script, was the proposed name for the center, the Juanita Vinoy Family Empowerment Center. Below it, a mission statement, dedicated to strengthening families through education, support, and community, in honor of a woman who held her own family together with grace, strength, and unconditional love. Juanita covered her mouth with her hand, sobbing. You always said you wanted to help families stay together, Michael said, his own voice breaking. You wanted to create opportunities for people like us, from regular neighborhoods who just needed a chance and some support. This is your chance to do that, without worrying about funding, without worrying about anything except making the difference you always wanted to make. Why? Juanita managed to ask through her tears. Why are you doing all this? Because you deserve it. Because our children deserve to see their mother honored. Because I spent 17 years taking from you, your time, your energy, your dreams. It's time someone gave back to you. Marcus handed Juanita a tissue. She wiped her face, trying to compose herself. I'm not asking you to forgive me, Michael continued. I'm not asking for anything. I just want you to have what you always deserved. Security, respect, and the chance to live your dreams instead of supporting someone else's. I don't know what to say, Michael. This is overwhelming. I know. Take your time. Think about it. But Juanita? Yes? Keep the ring, not as my ex-wife, but as the mother of my children, as the woman who shaped who I eventually became. As a reminder that some things are priceless and shouldn't be sold. Juanita looked at the ring with her children's names engraved on it. I'll keep it, she said softly. Good. She could hear the relief in Michael's voice. There's one more thing I want to ask you, and please, feel free to say no. There's no pressure. What is it? Next Friday night, I want to take you, Jeffrey, Marcus, and Jasmine to dinner, as a family. Not because we're married, but because you're all the most important people in my life. Will you come? Juanita looked at the ring, the letter, the trust fund documents, the community center plans. She thought about 17 years of pain and distance. She thought about 3 beautiful children. She thought about a man who finally learned the lessons she'd tried to teach him, even though it came too late. Yes, she said finally. I'll come to dinner. Thank you. Michael's voice was thick with emotion. Thank you for everything, Juanita. For the years we had. For our children. For giving me a chance to finally do something right. After they said goodbye, Juanita sat in Marcus Chen's office, surrounded by the evidence of Michael's transformation. The man she'd divorced 17 years ago could never have done this. That man couldn't be vulnerable, couldn't admit fault, couldn't put someone else's needs first. But this Michael, the one who wrote that letter, who planned for 7 years, who remembered her forgotten dreams, this was someone different. This was someone who had finally learned what she'd been trying to teach him all along. 1 week later, Juanita stood in her bedroom, holding up 2 dresses. Her daughter Jasmine sat on the bed, watching with an amused smile. Mom, you're acting like this is a first date, Jasmine teased. She was 25 now, working as a marketing director in Charlotte, smart and confident, a perfect blend of both her parents. It's not a date, Juanita said quickly. It's just dinner with the family. Uh-huh, Jasmine grinned. That's why you've changed outfits 3 times. Juanita sighed and sat down on the bed beside her daughter. I'm nervous. Is that silly? After everything, the marriage, the divorce, 17 years apart, I'm nervous about dinner. Jasmine took her mother's hand. It's not silly. Dad's different now, Mom. I don't know if you've noticed during our visits, but he's really changed. He actually listens. He asks questions. He's present. I know. Juanita looked down at the redesigned ring on her right hand. She'd been wearing it every day since leaving Marcus Chen's jewelry store. That's what makes this so complicated. Part of me wishes he'd been this person when we were married. But he wasn't ready then, Jasmine said wisely. Some people need to lose everything before they learn what matters. Dad lost you, and it broke something in him. But it also fixed something. When did you get so smart? Juanita smiled through tears. I learned from the best. Jasmine squeezed her mother's hand. Wear the blue dress. It's Dad's favorite color, but more importantly, it's yours. The restaurant. That evening, Juanita arrived at Meridian, a quiet Italian restaurant on the north side, the same place where she and Michael had their first date 36 years ago. Her hands trembled slightly as she gave her name to the hostess. Right this way, Mrs. Vinoy, the hostess said warmly. Your family is already here. The private dining room in the back held a round table set for 5. Jeffrey stood first when she entered. At 34, he looked so much like his father, tall, athletic, with that same intense focus. But his smile was all Juanita's, warm, genuine, welcoming. "Mom." He wrapped her in a tight hug. "You look beautiful." Marcus Jr. was next. At 32, he was quieter than his siblings, more introspective. He worked as a therapist now, helping others navigate anxiety and mental health. His own struggles had led him to a calling. "Hey, Mom," he said, kissing her cheek. "Thanks for coming." Jasmine bounced over and hugged her. "Told you the blue dress was perfect." Then Michael stood up from his chair. He was 60 years old now, his hair graying at the temples, lines around his eyes that hadn't been there during their marriage. But he still carried himself with that familiar confidence. Except now there was something else. Humility, peace, gentleness. "Juanita." He didn't move to hug her, respecting her space. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for inviting me," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. They sat down around the table, and for a moment, there was awkward silence. Then Jeffrey raised his wine glass. "I want to make a toast before dinner," he said, looking around at his family. "These past 17 years haven't been easy for any of us. Divorce split our family into 2 homes, 2 schedules, 2 versions of normal. But we survived. We stayed connected. And I think we need to acknowledge the 2 people who made that possible." He turned to his mother. "Mom, you never said a bad word about Dad to us. Even when you had every right to be angry, to turn us against him, you protected his image. You taught us that people are complicated. They can love you and still fail you. You taught us that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's strength." Juanita's eyes filled with tears. Jeffrey turned to his father. "And Dad, you finally became the father we needed. It took losing Mom to wake you up, but you woke up. You showed up. You listened. You grew. And that matters." He raised his glass higher. "So here's to both of you. To Mom, for being the strongest person I know. And to Dad, for becoming the man Mom always believed you could be. Better late than never." "To Mom and Dad," Jasmine and Marcus Jr. echoed, raising their glasses. Michael looked at Juanita across the table, his eyes glistening. "To your mother," he said quietly. "The most extraordinary woman I've ever known." They drank, and the tension in the room eased. Dinner was served. Classic Italian dishes that reminded Juanita of their early dates. As they ate, conversation flowed naturally. Jeffrey talked about his sports management company. Marcus Jr. shared stories from his therapy practice. Jasmine described a new marketing campaign she was launching. For the first time in years, they felt like a family again. Not the family they'd been during the marriage, fractured and tense, but something new, something healthier. Halfway through dinner, Marcus Jr. set down his fork and looked at his parents. "Can I say something?" he asked. "Of course, sweetheart," Juanita replied. Marcus Jr. took a breath. "I was 15 when you got divorced. The perfect age to be angry at everyone. And I was. I was angry at both of you for years." Michael's jaw tightened, but he stayed quiet, listening. "I blamed Dad for not being there," Marcus Jr. continued, "and I blamed Mom for giving up. I didn't understand that sometimes love isn't enough, that 2 good people can be wrong for each other." "Marcus," Juanita started. "Let me finish, Mom." He smiled gently. "Therapy helped me understand something important. You both did the best you could with the tools you had at the time. Dad didn't know how to be vulnerable. Mom didn't know how to set boundaries. Neither of you learned those things growing up, so how could you practice them in marriage?" He looked at his father. "What you've done these past few weeks, the ring, the trust fund, the community center, that's not just money, Dad. That's accountability. That's growth. That's what real love looks like. Not the Hollywood version where everything's perfect, but the real version where you mess up, you own it, and you try to make it right." Michael's voice was rough when he spoke. "Thank you, son. That means more than you know." Marcus Jr. turned to his mother. "And Mom, watching you accept Dad's help, That's growth too. You've spent your whole life taking care of everyone else. Letting someone take care of you for once, that takes courage. Juanita wiped her eyes. When did my children become so wise? We learned from watching you both, Jasmine said. The good and the bad. You showed us that marriage is hard, that people fail, but you also showed us grace, dignity, and how to rebuild after everything falls apart. As the main course plates were cleared, Michael pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket and slid it across the table to Juanita. What's this? She asked. Open it. Juanita opened the envelope to find a letter signed by all three of her children. Her hands shook as she read, Mom, Dad told us what he did with the ring, the trust fund, and the community center. He asked our permission first because he wanted to make sure we understood this wasn't about getting back together. It was about honoring you. We want you to know. We agreed immediately. In fact, we told him it was long overdue. You sacrificed everything for us. You put your dreams on hold so Dad could chase his. You held our family together even when it was breaking. You never asked for recognition or credit. We're proud of Dad for finally growing into the man you always deserved. But we're prouder of you for never losing yourself, even when everyone else was taking pieces of you. We love you both. Separately, you're amazing parents. Together at this table, you're showing us what mature love looks like. Respecting each other, supporting each other, choosing each other's well-being even when romance is gone. Thank you for this example. Thank you for everything. Love, Jeffrey, Marcus, and Jasmine. Juanita pressed the letter to her chest, overwhelmed. You three are the best thing I ever did. We're the best thing you both did, Jeffrey corrected gently. Together. As dessert was served, tiramisu, Juanita's favorite, the conversation turned lighter. They shared memories, laughed at old stories, reminisced about family vacations and holiday disasters. Michael told a story about the time 5-year-old Jasmine had convinced him to wear a princess crown to her tea party, and a photographer had caught the moment. The picture became famous. Michael Jordan, the toughest competitor in sports, wearing a pink crown and holding a tiny teacup. I'm not ashamed to admit it, Michael said, grinning at Jasmine. That tea party was scarier than any playoff game. You were a demanding hostess. I had standards, Jasmine laughed. Still do. As the evening wound down, Jeffrey, Marcus Jr., and Jasmine excused themselves one by one, leaving Michael and Juanita alone at the table. They planned this, Juanita observed. Probably, Michael agreed. He stood and offered his hand. Walk with me? Just for a minute? Juanita hesitated, then took his hand. They walked out to the restaurant's small garden patio, fairy lights twinkling overhead. Thank you for tonight, Michael said, releasing her hand but staying close. For giving me a chance to do this right. It was nice, Juanita admitted. Seeing everyone together, feeling like a family again. We're still a family, Michael said. Just a different kind, maybe a better kind. They stood in comfortable silence, listening to the city sounds around them. Juanita, can I tell you something? Michael asked. Of course. I don't expect anything from you. Not forgiveness, not friendship, not anything. But I want you to know that these past 3 years of therapy, of growth, of learning to be better, you were the motivation for all of it. Michael, I kept asking myself, what would Juanita think? Would she be proud of this choice? Would she see that I finally understand? He turned to face her fully. You were always my compass, even after you left. Especially after you left. Juanita's heart ached with a complicated mixture of sadness and hope. I'm glad you found your way. I really am. The community center groundbreaking is in 6 weeks, Michael said. I'd like to be there, if that's okay with you. I'd like that, Juanita replied honestly. And maybe we could have coffee sometime, just to talk, as friends. Juanita looked at this man, her first love, her ex-husband, the father of her children, someone who had hurt her deeply and was now trying desperately to make amends. Maybe, she said softly. Let's take it slow. Slow is good, Michael smiled. I've learned that speed doesn't win everything. As Juanita drove home that night, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the peace of resolution or closure, but the peace of possibility. The peace of knowing that people could change, that hurt could heal, that families could transform into something new and still be whole. Her phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Thank you for tonight. Thank you for 17 years of marriage. Thank you for 3 incredible children. Thank you for showing me what strength really means. You're extraordinary. MJ?" Juanita smiled, tears on her cheeks, and drove home to her quiet house that suddenly felt a little less lonely. Juanita woke up the next morning to sunlight streaming through her bedroom window. For the first time in months, she didn't feel the immediate weight of anxiety about bills, about money running out, about what she'd have to sell next. She looked at the redesigned ring on her nightstand, picked it up, and slipped it onto her right hand. The stones with her children's names caught the morning light. Her phone showed 3 missed messages, one from each of her children. Jeffrey: "Mom, last night was special. Thank you for giving us that. Love you." Marcus Jr.: "Proud of you, Mom, for everything. Always." Jasmine: "Best family dinner ever. P.S. Dad couldn't stop smiling. Just saying." Juanita smiled and made herself coffee. As she sat at her kitchen table, she opened her laptop and logged into her email. The trust fund documents were there, just as Michael had promised. $2.5 million, real, secure, hers. She also found an email from an architect named Patricia Chen, no relation to Marcus, the jeweler, with detailed plans for the Juanita Vinoy Family Empowerment Center. There was a note. "Mrs. Vinoy, Mr. Jordan hired me 6 months ago to design this center based on notes he'd kept from your conversations years ago. He asked me to create a space that would feel warm and welcoming, not institutional. A place where families would want to come for help without feeling ashamed. I hope I've captured your vision. Please let me know any changes you'd like to make. The project is entirely yours to shape. Patricia." Juanita scrolled through the plans, amazed at the detail. There were classrooms for parenting workshops, a commercial kitchen for cooking classes and job training, a gym where kids could play safely, office spaces for counselors and social workers, even a community garden. One room was labeled the Quiet Room, a meditation and reflection space with comfortable chairs and soft lighting. The note beside it read, "Mr. Jordan said you always talked about how people need a safe place just to breathe when life gets overwhelming." Tears filled Juanita's eyes. Michael had remembered conversations from 15, 20 years ago. Details she'd forgotten herself. Her phone rang. It was Carmen Rodriguez, her best friend since before Michael, the one who'd tried to set her up with athletes all those years ago. "Girl, you better tell me everything," Carmen practically shouted through the phone. "Jeffrey called me this morning and said you all had family dinner last night. How was it? How was Michael? Did he—" "Carmen, breathe," Juanita laughed. "I'm breathing. Now talk." Juanita spent the next hour telling Carmen everything. The ring, the letter, the trust fund, the community center, the dinner. Carmen listened, occasionally gasping or exclaiming. "So what does this mean?" Carmen finally asked. "Are you two getting back together?" "No," Juanita said firmly. "That's not what this is about. We're not the same people we were. Our marriage ended for real reasons. But Michael has changed, Carmen. He's done real work on himself, and he's trying to honor me, not win me back." "That's almost more romantic," Carmen observed. "Loving someone enough to let them go but still making sure they're okay." "It's complicated," Juanita admitted. "The best things always are." 6 weeks later, Charlotte, North Carolina. Juanita stood on an empty lot in Charlotte, wearing a hard hat and holding a golden shovel. Around her stood her 3 children, Michael, the architect Patricia Chen, local government officials, and about 50 community members who'd heard about the project. It was the groundbreaking ceremony for the Juanita Vinoy Family Empowerment Center. A local pastor opened with a prayer. Then the mayor spoke about the importance of family support services. Finally, Juanita was invited to the microphone. She'd prepared a speech, but looking at the faces around her, especially her children and Michael, the prepared words felt wrong. "I'm not good at public speaking," she began, her voice shaking slightly. "For most of my life, I was content to work behind the scenes, supporting other people's dreams. That was enough for me." She paused, gathering courage. But life has taught me something important. It's okay to have your own dreams. It's okay to be supported instead of always being the supporter. It's okay to accept help when you need it. She looked directly at Michael. Someone once told me I was too proud to ask for help. He was right. I thought asking for help meant I was weak or had failed somehow. But real strength is knowing when you can't do it alone. Michael's eyes glistened with tears. This center represents something important to me, Juanita continued, addressing the crowd again. Too many families fall apart because they don't have support, because they're struggling alone, because they think asking for help means admitting defeat. This will be a place where families can come without shame, where they can learn communication skills, get counseling, take parenting classes, find job training, and most importantly, breathe. Just breathe without judgment. She looked at her children. I didn't save my own marriage. I'm not standing here as an expert on how to make relationships work. I'm standing here as someone who learned hard lessons about partnership, sacrifice, and self-care. And I want to share those lessons so maybe other families won't have to learn them the hard way. The crowd applauded. Jasmine was crying openly. Jeffrey had his arm around his sister. Marcus Jr. smiled at his mother with pride. After the ceremony, as people mingled and took photos, Michael approached Juanita. That speech was perfect, he said quietly. It was honest, she replied. I'm done pretending things were perfect when they weren't. Can I show you something? Michael pulled out his phone and showed her a photo. It was the original display from Marcus Chen's jewelry store, the ring in the window with the plaque honoring Juanita. I saved this, Michael said. I wanted to remember this moment, the moment I finally did something right. Juanita studied the photo. Michael, can I ask you something? Anything. Why did you really do all this? And I want the complete truth, not the noble version you told me in the letter. Michael was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was raw with emotion. 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with high blood pressure and early signs of heart disease. The doctor said it was stress-related, manageable, not life-threatening if I took care of myself. But it scared me. Juanita's hand went to her heart. Michael, I'm fine now, he assured her quickly. I changed my diet, started exercising differently, reduced stress, but that diagnosis made me think about death, about legacy, about what I'd leave behind. He looked out at the construction site. Everyone will remember Michael Jordan, the basketball player, the championships, the brand, the shoes. But who will remember Michael Jordan, the man, the husband, the father? Our children will, Juanita said softly. Yes, and I want them to remember someone who took responsibility for his failures. Someone who honored the woman who gave him everything. Someone who learned and grew, even if it took losing everything first. Michael turned back to Juanita. I did this for our kids as much as for you. I want Jeffrey to see how a man should treat the mother of his children. I want Marcus Jr. to understand that therapy and growth aren't weakness. I want Jasmine to know her father finally learned to be vulnerable. That's the real truth, he continued. Not just guilt or regret, though I have plenty of both, but wanting to leave a legacy that matters. Wanting our children to see me do something truly right before I'm gone. Juanita reached out and squeezed his hand. That's the most honest thing you've ever said to me. I'm learning. Michael smiled sadly. Slowly. But I'm learning. That evening, the family gathered for dinner again, this time at Jeffrey's home in Charlotte. It was casual. Pizza and salad, kids running around. Jeffrey had 2 young children now. Laughter and chaos. Juanita sat on Jeffrey's back porch with a glass of wine, watching Michael play with his grandchildren in the yard. He was on his knees, letting them climb on his back, roaring like a monster as they shrieked with delight. Jasmine came out and sat beside her mother. You okay, Mom? More than okay, Juanita said. I'm watching your father be the grandfather he couldn't quite figure out how to be as a father. And I'm realizing something. What's that? People can change, not overnight, not easily, but genuinely, truly change. Your father is proof of that. Do you still love him? Jasmine asked quietly. Juanita considered the question carefully. I'll always love who he was when we first met. That nervous young man asking for a loan for his mother. And I respect who he's become now. But romantic love? That ended a long time ago, sweetie. And that's okay. We're building something different now. Something maybe more valuable. Genuine friendship and partnership in raising you three. I think that's beautiful, Jasmine said. Not everything has to be a fairy tale to be meaningful. Michael looked over and caught Juanita's eye. He smiled. Not the competitive smile from his playing days, but something gentler, more genuine. She smiled back. Later, as Juanita prepared to leave, Michael walked her to her car. Next week, the trust fund will be fully accessible, he said. Everything's been finalized. You're free to use it however you want. Thank you, Michael, for everything. There's one more thing I want to give you, Michael said. But I wanted to ask first. Would you be comfortable with me setting up a scholarship fund in your mother's name? For single mothers trying to get education or job training. Juanita's mother had passed away 5 years earlier. The mention of her brought immediate tears. Mama would love that, Juanita whispered. $500,000, managed by the community center. We'll call it the Dolores Vanoy Scholarship for Single Mothers. Your mother raised you and your sister practically alone. She deserves to be honored too. Juanita hugged Michael then. Really hugged him for the first time in years. Not romantically, but with genuine gratitude and affection. Who are you? She asked through tears. Where did competitive, can't-be vulnerable Michael Jordan go? Therapy, time, and losing the most important game of my life, Michael replied, holding her gently. That's what it took to find this version of me. They stood in Jeffrey's driveway under the stars. Two people who'd loved each other, hurt each other, and were slowly learning how to honor each other. Friends? Michael asked as they pulled apart. Friends, Juanita agreed. As she drove home, Juanita thought about the community center that would open in 18 months. About the families it would help. About her mother's scholarship fund. About her children, grown and thriving. About a man who finally learned the lessons she'd tried to teach him. Michael Jordan's ex-wife had tried to sell her wedding ring out of desperation and pride. What he did next shocked everyone. Not because of the money, though that was substantial, but because he did something rare and remarkable. He took full responsibility for his failures. He honored the woman he'd failed, and he showed his children what real growth looks like. The ring now sat in Juanita's jewelry box, redesigned with her children's names, a symbol not of a marriage that ended, but of a family that endured. Some love stories don't end with reconciliation. Some end with something deeper, respect, understanding, and two people committed to healing the wounds they caused each other. That was the real shock. That was the real gift. Juanita stood in the grand lobby of the Juanita Vanoy Family Empowerment Center, watching families stream through the doors. Children ran toward the new playground visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Parents clutched folders with class schedules, parenting workshops, financial literacy courses, job training programs. Counselors greeted families with warm smiles. The center had been open for 6 months, and it was already changing lives. Mrs. Vanoy? A young woman approached nervously, holding the hand of a small boy. I just wanted to thank you. My husband and I were about to get divorced. We came here for counseling 3 months ago and, well, we're still together. We're learning how to communicate, how to actually be partners. Juanita felt her eyes fill with tears. Something that happened often these days, but now they were happy tears. That's wonderful. I'm so glad the center could help. You saved my family, the woman said simply, then walked toward the counseling wing. Carmen appeared at Juanita's elbow, handing her a tissue. You're going to dehydrate if you keep crying at every success story. I can't help it, Juanita laughed, dabbing her eyes. This is what I always dreamed of. Families actually getting help before it's too late. Speaking of help, Carmen said with a sly smile, a certain someone just arrived for the anniversary celebration. Juanita looked toward the entrance and saw Michael walking in with their 3 children. He wore a simple suit, nothing flashy, and carried a box wrapped in silver paper. Over the past 2 years, Juanita and Michael had built an unexpected friendship. They met for coffee once a month, talking about their children, the center, life. Michael had continued therapy and had become an advocate for mental health, speaking openly about his journey of growth. "Mom!" Jasmine rushed over and hugged her. "The place looks amazing. There are like 200 people here." "Community support has been incredible," Juanita said. She'd hired a director to run day-to-day operations. But she came to the center 3 times a week, teaching financial literacy classes and mentoring young mothers. Jeffrey and Marcus Jr. joined them, both dressed nicely for the celebration. Michael hung back, letting the children have their moment with their mother. "We have a surprise for you," Jeffrey announced. "All of us, including Dad." "What kind of surprise?" Juanita asked suspiciously. Marcus Jr. grinned. "The kind you're going to cry about, again." They led her to the community room, where chairs were set up for a presentation. The room was packed with center staff, volunteers, families they'd helped, local officials, and friends. On the wall behind the small stage was a large photograph of Juanita's mother, Dolores Vanoy, smiling warmly. Below it, a banner read, "First Annual Dolores Vanoy Scholarship Recipients." Juanita's hand flew to her mouth. "We're giving out the first scholarships today," Jasmine explained. 10 single mothers are receiving full funding for education or job training. Dad wanted you to meet them and present the awards. Michael approached and handed Juanita the silver-wrapped box. "Open it first." Inside was a leather-bound book. Juanita opened it to find pages filled with letters. Dozens of them. "What is this?" she whispered. "Letters from families the center has helped," Michael explained quietly. "I asked people to write about what this place means to them, what you mean to them. I thought you should know the impact you're making." Juanita randomly opened to a page and began reading. "Dear Mrs. Vanoy, my name is Rachel and I'm 32 years old. 6 months ago, my husband and I were screaming at each other every night. Our 2 kids were scared and sad. I didn't know how to fix it and we couldn't afford therapy. Then I found your center. The counseling was free. The parenting classes taught us how to talk to each other. Today, my husband kissed me goodbye this morning and told me he loved me. That hasn't happened in 2 years. You gave me my marriage back. Thank you doesn't seem like enough. Rachel Martinez." Juanita couldn't continue reading. She clutched the book to her chest, overwhelmed. "There are 73 letters in there," Michael said softly. 73 families who are still together because you built this place, because you turned your own pain into purpose." The ceremony began. Juanita composed herself enough to present the scholarships to 10 remarkable women, single mothers working multiple jobs while raising children, dreaming of better futures. One recipient, a woman named Keisha Williams with 3 young children, accepted her award with trembling hands. "I dropped out of high school when I got pregnant at 16, Keisha told the room. "For 14 years, I've worked minimum wage jobs, barely keeping my kids fed. This scholarship is giving me a chance to become a nurse. My babies will see their mama graduate. They'll know education matters. Mrs. Vanoy, you didn't just give me money, you gave me hope." The room erupted in applause. Juanita hugged Keisha tightly, whispering, "You're going to be an amazing nurse. I believe in you." After the ceremony, as people mingled and ate refreshments, Michael found Juanita standing alone in the memorial garden, a peaceful space with benches and flowers dedicated to families healing from loss. "You okay?" he asked. "Better than okay," Juanita replied. "I'm fulfilled, Michael. For the first time in my life, I'm doing exactly what I'm meant to do." "You're extraordinary," Michael said. "I knew that 36 years ago, but I didn't appreciate it. I didn't honor it. I'm sorry it took so long for me to see clearly." "We both needed the journey," Juanita said. "The pain, the divorce, the years apart. Maybe we needed all of it to become who we are now." Michael was quiet for a moment. "I'm seeing someone," he said suddenly. "Dating, I mean. I wanted you to hear it from me." Juanita felt a small pang. Not jealousy exactly, but something bittersweet. "That's good, Michael. You deserve happiness." Her name is Angela. She's a college professor. Never been married, no interest in basketball. She's teaching me about art and literature, making me read books. He smiled. "You'd like her." "I probably would," Juanita agreed. Are you happy? I'm learning what happiness actually means. Not winning or succeeding, but being present. Being known. Being vulnerable with another person. He looked at Juanita. Lessons I should have learned with you. But you're learning them now. That's what matters. I'll always love you, Juanita, Michael said. Not romantically anymore, but as the mother of my children. As my friend. As the person who showed me what I was too blind to see. I'll always love you too, Juanita replied. We created 3 beautiful humans together. We have 5 grandchildren now. That's not nothing. Michael, we failed at marriage, but we succeeded at creating a family. They stood together in the garden, 2 people who'd loved, hurt, divorced, and ultimately found their way to mutual respect and genuine friendship. What's next for you? Michael asked. I'm writing a book, Juanita admitted, about marriage, divorce, and finding yourself after losing yourself. The center director thinks it could help people. It will, Michael said confidently. Your story, our story. It's messy and real. People need messy and real. Jeffrey appeared at the garden entrance. Mom, Dad, they're cutting the anniversary cake. You need to come do the honors together. Juanita and Michael walked back inside, where their entire family waited. Children, grandchildren, friends, and the extended family they'd built through the center. As they cut the cake together, cameras flashing, Juanita thought about the wedding ring she'd tried to sell 2 years ago. The ring that had started this whole journey. That ring now sat in a display case in the center's lobby, along with a plaque explaining its story. This ring represents a 17-year marriage that ended, but a family that endured. It was redesigned to honor 3 children and the power of transformation. When you're struggling, remember, endings can become new beginnings. Failure can become wisdom. And sometimes the greatest love is learning to honor what was while building what can be. Michael raised his glass of sparkling cider. To Juanita, he announced to the room. The strongest person I know. The best mother our children could have asked for. And the woman who taught me that real winning isn't about trophies. It's about becoming someone worthy of the people who love you. To Mom, the children chorused. As everyone drank and applauded, Juanita caught Michael's eye across the table. He smiled, that genuine, peaceful smile he developed over years of therapy and growth. She smiled back, her heart full. Michael Jordan's ex-wife had tried to sell her wedding ring in a moment of desperation. What he did next shocked everyone. He took responsibility. He honored her. He used his wealth not to control or impress, but to empower. He showed their children what real manhood looks like, not dominance, but growth. Not perfection, but accountability. And in doing so, he gave Juanita something more valuable than any settlement. Her dreams realized, her mother honored, her purpose fulfilled, and her family whole in a new and beautiful way. The ring wasn't just jewelry anymore. It was a symbol of transformation, of families that break and heal differently, of love that evolves beyond romance into something deeper, respect, partnership, and the commitment to help each other thrive, even after forever ends. That was Michael Jordan's real legacy, not just the championships, but learning to be the man his family deserved, even if he learned it 17 years too late. Some lessons cost everything to learn. But once learned, they change everything. So that's the incredible story of how Michael Jordan shocked everyone when his ex-wife tried to sell her wedding ring. A story about growth, accountability, and honoring the people who deserved better. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you listening from? Drop your city and country in the comments below. We love connecting with viewers from all around the world. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. When you subscribe, you help us spread more stories of kindness, forgiveness, and transformation to people who need to hear them. And don't go anywhere yet. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now for another amazing story that will inspire you. Thanks for watching, and remember, it's never too late to become the person you were meant to be.